welcome to this episode, Doc.
Thank you so
It's
much.
always good to have
Thank
you
you
as
so
a
much.
Doc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same here.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit before we jump into today's episode
Yeah.
about what we talked about the last time, which was a big conversation that I noticed even for a lot of people who joined the show,
Yeah.
and it is anger. Would you like to recap that session for us before we dive into talking about more difficult emotions?
Emotions. Yeah, so last time we looked at anger, and I think anger was an emotion that I could tell from the comment section most
Yeah.
people related
Yeah.
with it. And anger is basically that emotion that communicates to us what has really happened inside when people tend to talk our values, or rather our core values. And we can only be angered at something that we value, something that is special to us, something that means something to us. And I think we talked a bit more on how people just get angry and how they can resolve it. Yeah, so that was a good episode.
Yeah, I think that was really good. And something I loved about it was the fact that when we're angered, I think something you said about when we're angered, like you have said, someone has poked up at something that means something to you, and it's not pushing us to be aggressive,
Yes.
but rather to do some internal work.
Yes.
So I think you said something like that, and that stuck with me. So without further ado,
Yeah.
let's get into today's emotions. And the first one is fear.
Yeah.
Let's start with definitions. How do I know I'm fearful, afraid? What is fear?
All right. So I think in one of the other episodes, we talked about the fact that these emotions at times are expressed in negative ways, and that. So fear is, I can say, it's also something that sort of reflects negativity at times, but it isn't always.
Yeah.
So it's basically an unpleasant emotion that signals to us something that we are afraid of, something that we are uncomfortable about. So it could be something to do with the future, something that is to come, something that you anticipate, and you feel as though you are not in control, or it is something that is going to get something away from you.
Yeah.
So it may, in a way, anticipate a certain loss, may in a way anticipate a certain imbalance, and you are concerned, and you are not in control of this. And this thing brings out fear, right?
I like that. The loss of control and being afraid to lose something. That already answers the next question which I had is what is it that sets in fear? But what would you say then is, because we learned from the first discussion that we had that what we call negative emotions are just signals in us that there's something we need to work on. What does fear signal?
Right, so for fear in itself, because remember that most of the things to do with fear are presented, or they get to manifest in anxiety, worry, So what does it show? What it really shows is that there is something that we need to pay attention to, because it is perhaps going to bring an imbalance on our perspective to whatever it is that we're concerned about. This is one thing that I should mention as I'm answering this. It is not everything that we fear that is real.
Tell me about it.
It is not everything that we fear that is real. Most of the things are just perceived. So they are imagined. But there are also other things that are real. A threat, you have been told something, perhaps particular words that are bringing you this concern, you're frightened and all that. So that in itself would bring fear. Now, it also speaks to the fact that when we are afraid or we have this fear, we are put in that place where we feel as though we are small. We need somebody to rescue us.
Yeah.
Right? We need somebody to rescue us. If we look at it from the biblical perspective, it's another way that makes us realize that, okay, we are human beings and we have particular limits.
Yeah.
So even when the Bible says fear not, it's simply giving you hope that there is one that is greater than you. So fear in itself just makes us realize that, okay, we're human, and here there's a limit. Or here there's something that I'm in need of, but in my own might, I cannot. Yeah.
I like that. So there's two ways. It's almost like an inner mechanism to protect you from danger, right? So if there's an episode we did where you're talking about you have a scar somewhere, and because you touched fire, now you know that mechanism is in your system to help you protect you. But there are some that are perceived because you're entering perhaps new territory. This is something you've never done before, like maybe getting into a relationship, starting a new job. So there's some fears, but also the coolest is public speaking. Still don't know what the fear is. Like, I know it's real, but it's like, what are people going to do? Eat you up? You know what I mean?
Maybe let me speak into that.
Yes, please speak into that, because like the logic behind it, every time I'm like, I feel very nervous before speaking in front of people, whoever that is. But when I sit down to think about it, it's like, so what's the worst that could happen?
That could happen, true. True.
So
it's really our inner mechanism, right? So I, for one, I think I've shared this before. I was once a stammerer, and well, now I can speak eloquently. But it's because we imagine the worst possible thing to happen if we have not attempted something yet. If we are not operating in that capacity of eloquence, we feel as though, well, here I may make a mistake. There's so much fear in our anticipation of making a mistake. We feel as though that is the worst possible thing that can happen to us if we made a mistake. Because our minds somehow, whenever they predict, our mind, whenever it predicts a threat, it will want to protect us, right? So that's the nervousness that often comes when we're about to speak. Now, I think most great speakers say every great communicator gets to feel some nerves before they speak. But that doesn't mean that they are going to blunder or anything. They just get to feel that, which is a normal thing, because it is our mind doing what it does best for us, which is protecting us in any new place, any new environment. If we're about to do something we haven't done before, it doesn't matter how good we are at it. We may be good public speakers, but it's just a new environment. At times you get to just feel those nerves, and it's your nervous system doing what it does best, which is protecting you. But the moment you step there, the moment you begin to talk,
that's true.
It
that's
goes.
True.
Because
and I think for some people, if you are energized, even you're just like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I love it. But just before stepping onto the stage, you're just like, why did I do this to myself? It's
so
really crazy.
You adapt, and there basically the science behind is that in those nervousness, that's a stress response. So your
body is
experiencing stress. So that's a stress response. So in that moment, you are battling between fight and flight. But the next step is that there's adaptation. So you begin to adapt to the room. And so as you continue to speak, whatever pace you start with, if at all you'd want to begin with just getting people stand, shake yourself, and all that. Do what you need to do, because that will lighten you up, shake off whatever weight that you may have had at the beginning, and you just adapt.
I was watching an episode of Truth and by the Reverend Evangelist when she had Esther on,
Okay.
And Esther was talking about how musicians get a lot of energy from the crowd, so it makes it very difficult. And that's what I was thinking about it when I'm not receiving it from you. It's like then the nerves.
That's true.
All that to say, how do we, when we take fear now and put it into real life context, like I had talked about, we've talked about public speaking. How do I overcome nerves? For instance, when going into an interview, I can't hide that crowd up for me. How do we deal with fear in the real life? How do we adapt, like you have said?
Okay, so I think again I'll try to go back to stress response.
Yes, please do that.
I'll try to go back to stress response because that's really what explains the science behind it. So if you are going to get through the nerves, you need to get to the place of recovery, right? So when people are burned out, right, most people would want to work on that with maybe something soothing, something to distract them. But that isn't the solution that you need in that moment. What you need is recovery. And by recovery, we simply mean you getting to do activities or practices that will put your nervous system in recovery. That will activate the part of your nervous system that calms your body. Because when the stress alert response is on, it needs to be shut down. So there are some activities or practices that you need. Some have to do with deep breathing. So for example, you are supposed to go in an interview and you have those nerves, right? You would need to just squeeze yourself for a few minutes and just do a bit of deep breathing. Because what you'd be doing in that moment is that you'd be turning on the part of your nervous system that is in charge of calming you down. So when you do that deep breathing, you would then be calm. And now you can go. An example of a deep breathing exercise is one that I usually share. So it's called the 4-7-8 breathing technique.
4-7-8,
Yes. You breathe in for 4 seconds. Okay, 4-7-8. 4, breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds. Hold your breath for 7 seconds.
4-7, so breathe in, hold it.
So you hold.
Breathe in 4, hold it 7.
Hold it 7, and release from your mouth. 8.
So you just count the time.
So
it's breathe in, hold, release. 4-7-8.
Yes.
Nice.
So
that will help me calm. And how many times do I need to do
so
that?
you need to do it more than 3 times.
Okay.
Yeah, you need to do it more than 3 times. That in itself will be able to calm you down in that moment, and you can go in. The other thing that you need to do when it comes to fear is also affirmations. Affirmations also help. How are they helping your perception, your belief in that moment? Most people sort of criticize themselves. Like
That's true.
they already believe they're not going to make it. You know? So I usually say that a lot of people are like the man in the Bible that cried out to Jesus, I believe, but help my unbelief.
Let's do this and then I'll do it. Okay.
So even in that moment of fear, just try to affirm something. It is going to speak to your perspective in that moment. It is going to speak to the belief in that moment. The other thing really about fear also depending on the kind of situation, because at times it could be just a short-term fear, which we call acute fear, and at times it could be that you've been afraid for some time, which we call chronic fear. So how you handle acute fear and chronic fear is different. Those in chronic fear, meaning they've been living their lives, in fear.
Relationships speaks to more
speaks to that. Yes.
Where perhaps you experienced a trauma, maybe.
Yeah. So for those, it is reflected in their attachment style. So there's what we call attachment styles. Most people have anxious, most people have secure, most people have avoidant or disorganized, and others have fear-based, attachment. These are people that are, as a result of what they have gone through in life, they are afraid to commit. Right? They are afraid to commit, and just them being afraid to commit messes up a lot of relationships that they would find themselves in. So they would entertain a person when things get serious, they pull off, they withdraw because they have this chronic fear. And their fear has become a belief. So it is not that they are just doing it because, but it's real. It has become something that is operating under repression. Yes. So if they want to get out of that, they also need to be intentional about it. So they need to know the root first. How did this fear come about? What did I go through that perhaps I suppressed? What did I expose myself to? Who said something? Because at times it could be an experience, it could be some people's words, it could be that you had observed something and now the life events somehow are validating that belief.
But isn't that just how it is, though? Sorry to cut you off.
Sure.
The fact, in my head, the way not even in my head, the success cycle that I came to accept was we all have potential. I forget what it is now. We all have potential, then we act on that potential. But in that cycle, ultimately what happens, what matters is what we believe.
Yes.
If you believe you're not going to do something, it will become a self-fulfilling prophecy because you believe it so much, your attitude, your actions will be in alignment with that. And it's not that deep a spiritual concept. I feel like it's such a simple basic thing that we overlook. That if you believe, like we're talking about the affirmation, the mindful act of breathing, if you believe that the job is not yours, your nervous system supports you to behave like that. It will prove you right. Then you're going to become anxious. Then you're going to screw up the interview.
Absolutely.
Nothing to do with the people in the village or anything.
Nothing.
It's the depth, and that's the power of what
the
we
limiting beliefs.
Yes.
That's why I say that.
Limiting beliefs.
I say limiting beliefs are stronger than your village people.
I agree. I'm with you 100% on that. I'm with you 100% on that. And when I learned that, I thought it was really, really powerful. And while I agree about affirmations, I feel like affirmations work better when you use them not as a quick fix. But more, I don't think they work in the quick fix because your mouth is saying something, your mind believes something. So there's sort of an opposition. So before you even get to the interview, before you get to the relationship,
is there a best?
Yes, I feel like affirmations work better when we have them at the foundation. But I love that for this month. We've done affirmations, beliefs, breathing techniques, I love that. I absolutely love that. So for chronic fear, I just wanted to get into that just a little bit because we've done that a few times. Like when we talk about attachment styles and going to the root, right? It's about dealing with trauma. So if someone has chronic fear, they've identified themselves with the things that you have explained with the attachment styles. What is the first step? Because you talked about they have to be intentional. What does that look like? How am I intentional if I have chronic fear in dealing with something I do on my own? Do I come to you?
So they have to be intentional on a number of things to do with what happened and what they can actually do now, which is self-acceptance. Now, others say acceptance, but I'd like to say self-acceptance because it is about you, happening to you. If you don't accept what is going on with you, or what went on with you, you will likely find yourself brainstorming or pointing at others. And if you shift the focus on others, you will not work on it. You will be that person expecting for somebody to come and apologize for you to move on. You will be that person waiting, and they are not come. They never come. They never
You just
come.
have to make do.
Yes.
Yeah.
At times we heal without the apology.
Closure can be overrated, but it's a beautiful gift, and when I can receive it, I take it.
Yeah.
It can be overrated.
Yeah. So self-acceptance is key. Self-acceptance is you getting to a place where you're not avoiding the reality of things.
Yeah.
You're not in that place where you don't want to accept that this thing happened and it is affecting me in this way now. So I had that experience, maybe it was sexual trauma, or I had that experience, maybe it was emotional neglect. I had that experience, this person was not there, this person did this. You accept that, and you accept how it is manifesting now.
Yeah.
I think it's the reason why I didn't commit to them.
Yeah.
Or it is the reason why I ended things with Sharon.
Yeah.
You accept that.
Yeah.
So when you accept that, you now need to work on self-awareness. Self-awareness is you now getting to realize that, okay, since this is what has happened, what are some of the things right now that may be limiting me to work on these core beliefs?
Yeah.
Right? So when you look at some of those things, you are being aware of the traits, the coping skills you've had, because a lot of us cope with different things. So how have you been coping every time you feared something? How have you been coping every time you had an emotional trigger? So if you don't know how you've been coping, you don't know how to move on, because the ways that you've been coping usually become so normal and a part of you. They move from just being a trait to a way of life. So if you are not aware that, okay, this way of life is a coping mechanism, you will not know what to change.
So what is a coping mechanism?
So most people usually, okay, let me use the word repress and suppress, explain them, then I give examples.
Yes, please. Yes.
All right. So when you go through something, you get into survival mode. And for you to survive that, others would suppress. So for example, they would ignore, they would avoid, they would just not want to talk about. So they are suppressing.
Yeah.
So they don't want it to come to the surface. They just try to suppress it. But what happens is that over time, that suppression becomes a part of you, and it moves from suppression to repression. So suppression is you doing it consciously. Repression is your mind now taking over to say, we can do this for you.
We've been doing this for a long time.
We've been doing this for some time. So repression is happening subconsciously. At times you don't even know, but you just avoid somebody. At times you just ignore somebody. Because your mind knows that, oh,
we ignore this one.
This one. So we have that. So repression, subconsciously, suppression, consciously. Now, if we look at how most people behave when they are disappointed, or when they get in a place where they feel as though they don't trust this person because they remind them of a particular betrayal. Could be something to do with the family, something to do with friends, business partner, whatever it is. So most people have a way that they react to respond to these things that have now become a part of their life. That even when they have an opportunity, they would not. They're thinking in black and white. It is what it is. And oftentimes, yes, I understand. We usually even say, well, I've grown. I'm not going to fall for that. I'm not going to fall for that. And it is good to grow, but it is good to grow in a way that you are responding in a way that is not sabotaging you. right?
Right.
So it is not every opportunity that you receive that may end up the way Susan treated you when you got that opportunity with them.
That's a lot to unpack. That's a lot to unpack. But but how do you know? Because the repression is a bit deep.
Yeah.
How do you know then that you're
that you've been
repressing?
Yeah. So that's where doing the inner work and all this comes in. The root cause.
So you dive deep. It's real work.
It's just probing.
Yeah.
Because at times it's usually when I'm talking to different people, right? It's something that may begin from just a lost business opportunity.
Yeah.
But we find ourselves in a particular relationship, a particular relationship issue.
Yeah.
But it came from a lost business opportunity. So all these things get to really link to. I usually say life is emotional, and that at times we neglect, or we're not so mindful of the fact that emotions, rather energy, moves. So I say emotion is energy in motion, right?
Yeah.
So whatever energy that was brought about by an issue that you had in a relationship, it can find its way elsewhere.
Yeah.
Because it's about emotions, energy in motion.
Anyway, it's just because and all that just from fear, and that's what you keep saying. Because it's a signal.
Yes.
You fear because you've experienced something, or you are afraid of
proof.
You have proof. Yeah, the trauma is proof.
You have proof. Yes,
yeah, and you've seen it happen. But you see, another conversation this takes me back to is that definition of trauma.
Yeah.
We have no control over how our nervous system reacts. So a lot of people, for instance, you know how now in the motivation space, people will just tell you when a door closes, another one will open, and then you don't deal with that emotion, and then it shows up elsewhere. In your mind, you're like, it's not even that big of a deal, but it's the same thing that you keep saying.
Yes.
You have no control over how your nervous system is reacting to that, so don't ignore it.
Yes.
If it takes you there,
address it.
And see where that is. So, okay. That's a lot about fear. I don't know, do you have anything else that you feel like this is something important you need to add to the conversation about fear?
Okay. Maybe just concluding on the very previous question about how it presents itself. So at times, most people would actually even have these different personalities. And by personalities,
it gets deeper.
And by personalities, I'm simply saying there are people that think they are introverted.
Yeah. Oh, I remember that as well.
Yeah. There are people that mask up, and it's because they've been protecting themselves from whatever that they fear.
Yeah.
And it has become really a part of them that for them to survive, they have to be introverted. But not everybody that is introverted is introverted. So it gets to the personality. So most people are living on a secondary personality in a way, because that's just how they need to survive. I think extroverted.
No, don't even go there. I might be actually.
I think you're extroverted, and I can prove it.
No, we won't let you do that in public. No,
Alright.
we're not doing that. But I
Have
could
it
be.
pass.
Yeah, I could be extroverted. But that's very interesting. Thank you so much.
See you the next one.
We're out.
All right.
Bye.